Why do I feel like, even after putting Agent WB through re-education, it's just going to get worse? Maybe it's time to add more measures or adjustments.
Excuse me, sir. Agent JB has just arrived and is requesting an audience with you.
Or maybe it's just this generation of Watchers is just full of troublemakers. You can proceed to let him in.
Hey, Chief. I heard you put Agent WB through your re-education course. You know it's going to go in one ear and out the other, right? It's just in his nature.
Is it in your nature to stir the pot when you could be diving into worlds yourself? The first arc of Regression with the King's Power is a good story. There's no predestined future or event that has to be stopped, which makes for a great dive.
Well, after Taehyun is offered a position, one could only dream of his journey truly begins. From here, Taehyun must learn to harness his power, build alliances, and confront formidable enemies. But I'm curious what happened next.
Taehyun declined the offer. Junwei, taken aback, abruptly stood and asked why. Taehyun replied that there's no special reason for it. He explained that he just believes that rather than being a member of one of the 4 great guilds of the association, he finds it more effective to work alone. He apologized for not being able to help the chairman. Ji Jinwei sat back down as he expressed that he never imagined that Taehyun would say that he's better off alone rather than being in the great guilds or the association. He accepted his decision, and then he offered that they do something else instead of Taehyun joining the association. And then he asked Kim Taehyun if he's interested in participating in the Asian exhibition games. Jinwei was serious with this offer.
To turn down what could have been a blank check, especially with his rank documented as an S rank plus and government backing, seemed unthinkable. His life was all set. What reason did he have to turn it down? Yes, he is a regressor, but he isn't the key to stopping some grand event from happening. He just got a redo now as an awaken.
Not all money is good money. And what is status when it comes with a leash? Taehyun may have gained strength he has yet to fully understand, but his future is for him to decide. He has many questions, so going solo for a while might be the best choice. Later that day, Taehyun finds himself knee-deep in a horde of monsters. After what transpired during the exam, taking on these creatures feels more like a walk in the park to him. Taehyun sighed. With that, he had cleared the dungeon. He thought about the Asian exhibition games. This is an event where 5 representatives are chosen from the associations and guilds of each country within Asia. It is a festival of hunting down villains and monsters, but to be picked as a national representative, to prove that the person hunted down monsters and villains for the sake of the country, they would need to acquire some merit points. He recalled Jean White telling him that given his history of advancing, it's definitely a worthy goal to target. In his mind, he reasoned out that he just became a player. To catch up to the merit points everyone stacked over years, he has to hunt down monsters and villains that are way stronger. Taehyun has been clearing all dungeons known to the new South Korea Association for a month, but he's far from getting merit points. He looked at the portal and thought how he had no choice, even if he knew it was dangerous. He decided to go inside after all. At nighttime, outside a mansion, a glass filled with liquor shattered. Lee Jumsu choked Seol Hundu using his powers. Seol Hundo asked the president to calm down, but he couldn't when T-Sun's heir is still in the damn hospital, and the culprit behind that is now an S-rank player on the rise. In a fit of his anger, he powerfully threw Seol Hundo to the ground. Hundu yelled loudly from the pain of the collision, and then his eyes turned white, and he lost consciousness. The president's secretary came in to inform the president that he has a guest form the Malignant Guild. When he heard the word malignant, he recalled that those were the rascals who couldn't get rid of one brat after stuffing money down their damn throats. He was angry, and he expressed how dare they show their faces here. He yelled that he's going to do something to them. However, out of the blue, he sensed something. The door in front of him became distorted as it emits an ominous aura, and a person appeared from the door. He expressed that the matter with Lee Jumsu's son is truly a shame. Then he encouraged Jumsu to calm down first, and then this person confirmed that the lowly brat isn't the final target of Taehyun's group. This person introduced himself as the vice president of the Malignant Guild. He is known as Shadow, but his rank is yet to be known. Meanwhile, Taehyun's portal appeared, and he emerged from it, and he was being welcomed by someone. In front of a tall building stood a man who held a sign. He introduced himself as Kim Taehyun's guide for the auction. He is an A-ranker from the Alchemists. With enthusiasm, he spoke his name, which is part Jeon-wung. Jeon-wung is an A-rank player, hired as a bodyguard by the Alchemist Guild for the auction. He is also a member of Taehyun's fan club, and his skill is gate manipulation. After he had seen Taehyun overpowering everyone on the third round of the player tryouts, he became a fan. He asked for an autograph. Taehyun was dumbfounded. They are in the Asians option region called East Point, and it has option items of the greatest quality, the largest scale within Asia. East Point has a great deal of positive points, but even among them, the one point that's considered would be security. Taehyun asked Park Jeon-won if he's sure about having the autograph on his face. Park Jeon-won explained that bodyguards like him play a role, but the constant changing of warp points actually made it impossible to reach the destination without approval. Warp point is the coordinate value needed to connect to the warp gate, and that's the main reason why there were no security issues in the past decades. Taehyun thought that Park Jeon-won was right. East Point deserves to be called the best in security. However, our MC knew something that none of them could have predicted. An S-rank villain terror attack will take place in that very place on that day. After a while, the host of the auction was excited. The best item on sale for the auction is out. It's called the Phoenix Potion. Just drinking it will boost stamina and magic points by 20 each. Taehyun planned to wait for the terror attack, eliminate the S-rank villain, and get the merit points. But the problem is that he had no information about this. Before his regression, the news only reported the serious damage that East Point suffered, and the main culprit of the terror attack was Norandra Nairu, but he wondered who stopped it. Taehyun then called Park Jeon-won, who brought him ice cream. He asked who is the chief security. Park Jeon-won was surprised. Park Jeon-won was alarmed and curious why Taehyun wanted to know. Taehyun explained that he just had a question. He verified if he's not allowed to know. Park Jeon-won replied that it wasn't the case, but he's hesitant to answer. All of a sudden, someone uttered, "Look, who is it?" They were both surprised to see who it was. The man described Taehyun as the 12th S-ranked player of New South Korea and the youngest S-ranker. Together with the man are people that looked like his own army. The crowd watched them march in, and the man who spoke approached Taehyun. This man was pleased to announce that Kim Taehyun is there. This person is known as Isaki Ryohei, aka the Devil. He is a Japanese S-rank player and the East Point Chief Security Officer. Taehyun asked Jeon-won who it was, which made him explain. Jeon-won whispered to Taehyun to be mindful. Jeon-won shared that Isaki Ryohei even stabbed his comrades for his own benefit, so the players call him the Devil. Isaki Ryohei said that he heard that New South Korea had sent an extraordinary genius, but he didn't expect to meet Taehyun in person. He reached out his hand. Taehyun carefully observed the hand extended to him. He wondered why it was a left hand. He shook his hand, but Isaki Ryohei released his power, and Taehyun got electrocuted. It became stronger, which made Taehyun groan in pain. Isaki Ryohei kept laughing. He was amused, since he never expected Taehyun could endure that. It also shows that Taehyun is an S-rank after all. Taehyun cursed him in his mind, but his anger dissipated when he heard someone in pain. He saw that it was the people on the side. They were choking from Isaki Ryohei's powers. Taehyun cursed. He knew that if he fought Isaki Ryohei there, the civilians would get dragged into it. Isaki Ryohei expressed that his prank might have been excessive for a kid who just became an S-rank player. Isaki Ryohei let go of Taehyun's hand. He placed his arm over his shoulder and whispered that it should have been an enough lesson for Taehyun. He told Taehyun that he may be an S-ranker, but he is not on the same level as him. He added that he has no idea why Taehyun came there, but he warned him not to try any useless stunts, lay low, and to get lost, and he called Taehyun a brat. As he was pulling away, he laughed and wished him to have fun at the auction. As if to insult Taehyun even more, he laughed loudly as he was making his way towards the door. Park Jeon-won was worried about Taehyun. Taehyun's expression showed a hint of annoyance, and he realized that because of Isaki Ryohei, it is going to be trickier than he thought. A few moments later, inside the building, security guards encountered other unknown armed men. They wondered how these intruders had entered the building. The leader of the authorized men told his subordinates that they didn't need to know all the details. He explained that the hallway they were in only led to the gate control office. Given the presence of the unknown men, he concluded that they must be the target they were tasked with taking care of. He instructed his men to assist him in taking out the infiltrator. The aftermath of the fight was evident, with corpses strewn across the ground. Only one man was left standing, an old, half-naked man with a turban. He had a large monster with him that had just crushed the head of one of the guards. The man groaned in pain as the monster's arm swallowed his head, yet he was delighted. This man was Narendra Nu, an S-rank villain of unknown affiliation.
Now, this is something. Using his knowledge of the event, he's going to place himself right in the middle of it, hoping to change the outcome and gain street cred with the committee. You sure picked a crazy world to visit, Chief. So please hit that like button if you're enjoying these conversational style recaps. It really helps the channel. With the gang all here, it looks like there's going to be a lot going on in this event.
That's because the mastermind behind this is Narendra Nehru. His men informed him that a variable had come up at the auction house. The S-ranker of New South Korea Association is at the auction house. They asked what they should do about it. Nehru remained silent. He asked what was the matter with a lowly trash like that when he's present. And as long as he's there, he declares that no one can evade divine revelation. The scene then shifted towards this view of a twin building. And then, all of a sudden, the tall building was bombed. Inside that building, an auction with many people is ongoing. Half of the room was reduced to ashes because of the bombing. People who were relaxed were suddenly being blown away. Jeon-won immediately went to Taehyun's side. He checked if Taehyun is okay, and he urged him to evacuate at once. Taehyun was in a state of shock. He knew a terror attack would happen, but he had no idea that they would bomb all throughout the structure. He wondered how the terrorists were able to sneak in, and even the time frame on when the bombs were installed. He tried to remain calm and focused on what's important. The terrorists showed themselves. One terrorist instills fear by gunning the ceiling and commanding the people to lower their weapons and give them the money and valuables that people owned. He threatened them that if they resisted, he would shoot them in the head. But he was cut mid-sentence, and the next thing he knew, his head was no longer attached to his body. And Taehyun was the cause of that. Jeon-won was shot. Kim Taehyun instructed him to inform the association of the situation and request for reinforcements. With a serious expression, Taehyun vowed to catch the person behind the incident. On a different side of the building, the guards hold the fort even with their injuries. The leader of this group told the terrorists that the articles had been bid on already, and they're not for terrorists like them. The leader of that group told his team to slaughter them all. They engaged in a bloody fight and killed all the guards. With the path being cleared, he chose a container with a cap of the head of a phoenix, and it was what he had been aiming for. It was the Phoenix Potion, a unique item. It permanently increases stamina and mana by 20 points each when consumed. Upon holding that potion, he now understood why Nehru told them to get it, even if it meant putting their lives at stake. He sensed tremendous energy from it just by looking at it. He started to think of drinking that potion. But before he could do anything, an explosion happened that surprised him. It left one of his members dead. He was surprised and confused. Other members reported that there's an enemy, but they're confused because they can't see anything. The next thing they know is that they're being hit. The next moment, they had lost their lives. The leader of the terrorists in that group figured out that the enemy used stealth skill, but before he could do anything, his body had already been slashed. He used his ability and metal chains appeared. The chains were deployed around the area to survey where the enemy was. The chains kept moving until it had tied a man. He was mad at the enemy for daring to act up with nothing but stealth. The tied man was impressed that the guy had a skill that can locate even an opponent who uses stealth. It was Kim Taehyun, and he told the man that his skill would be perfect for predation. Meanwhile, on the other part of the building, several corpses of the guards lay on the ground, while several civilians had been tied up, with monsters surrounding them. At the warp gate control room, several warps are opened, and surrounding it are several armed men and huge monsters. Nehru announced that it was such a simple matter. He announced that all people would fear him, the one they proclaimed their god, even more. He thought that all was left to do was the Phoenix Potion, but a subordinate came up to him. The man reported to Nehru that they received a message from Dyke's group who went to acquire the Phoenix Potion, and he told Nehru that there was a problem. Just hearing the word problem, Nehru was displeased. The radio was noisy because of its static sounds, until they heard someone speak. This person asked if he was really that person. Nehru, he asked the person on the other line who he was. Taehyun told him that he's the one who has what Nehru wants.
Oh shit, my boy is really playing for keeps. He'd be a fool not to have taken that Phoenix Potion for himself and just placed the blame on them. With all these abilities, it's like Taehyun is in the bonus round of a game, leveling up his skills and stats. He's about to go full Reggie from Bad Boys 4 and go straight ham.
It's true, since he is holding the Phoenix Potion. He told Nehru that if he wanted it back, he should get there soon, and he called him a fucking terrorist. Nehru was triggered. The defeated men were scattered on the ground. Taehyun drank the potion. System informed him that his stamina had increased as well as his magical power. He determined that it was a unique rank potion, and its effect was really on a different league. With Taehyun roaming around the dungeon earlier, it hadn't had much effect on his stats, but the potion, it had increased his stats all at once. Now that he drank it, he doesn't have to worry about the Phoenix Potion getting into the hands of the terrorist. He heard several footsteps. It was Izaki Ryohei and his team. Several corpses lay there, but aside from that, the hall was empty. He wondered if the person who called them had run away, but Ryohei laughed at them. He told them that the person is just right in front of them. He told Taehyun to stop hiding. Taehyun reversed his stealth ability, while commenting how odd it was for them to notice when his ability was perfect. They stood face to face. Ryohei asked what someone like Kim Taehyun's caliber was doing there. Taehyun retorted back to Ryohei that what about the head of security like him who should be running around trying to clean up after the terror attack? Ryohei laughed, and he revealed that there's something he's looking for. Taehyun watched him. He sighed while getting something from his pocket, and he mentioned that he noticed that something was off. First, the fact that the security team couldn't find all those bombs despite having all the players as bodyguards. Taehyun saw the terrorists storming in through the east point where they can't enter without permission, and that led him to think that the terrorists had someone working with them from the inside. But no one would have thought that the head of security would have been the spy. Ryohei replied that he was kind enough to warn Taehyun to stay in his lane. Ryohei disappeared in front of them. Taehyun was alert. When Ryohei showed up, he had already attacked Taehyun. Ryohei demanded Taehyun to hand it over. Taehyun smirked at him and told him to try to take it like a villain should. They continued to fight while Ryohei's subordinates watched them, but the subordinates could barely follow them with their eyes, since the match was intense because of the incredible speed of the two. The ground was shattering. Some of the stuff was sliced too. The subordinate did not even dare to move because they could have been caught up in the battle between S-rankers, so there's no doubt that they'll end up getting chopped into pieces if they carelessly interfere. Taehyun was being pushed back by Ryohei. Taehyun seemed to be having a difficult time. In his head, he is cursing at Ryohei. He also confirmed his suspicions. Unlike him, who only predicts the direction of attack through killing Aryan sound, Ryohei can actually see him. He swung his sword. That caught Taehyun off guard, and Taehyun was slashed right on his chest.
Hey, don't just cut to me. The chief is retelling the story more rhyme.
He groaned as his body bled. Taehyun recognized that even if they are both using stealth, there's such a huge gap in their proficiency. Despite his injury, Taehyun remained standing. He surprised the subordinates when he jumped really high to properly position himself in using his next ability. In his mind, Ryohei is not worthy for him to use the Predation. The subordinates were surprised when they were lifted in the air by the purple smoke. Taehyun's arm turned into rock, and he hit all the subordinates with it. They groaned in pain and fell to the ground. After that, Taehyun looked for Ryohei. He laughed while commenting that it was some awesome judgment that Taehyun showed. Ryohei was on the ceiling. He told Taehyun that it was awesome of him because stealth was weak against wide-range skills. He added that Taehyun is looking for him. He should have used it over his head as well. Then he attacked Taehyun. Taehyun attempted to block the sword with his dagger. Terrorists were patrolling on a quiet hallway, but they immediately ran away when Ryohei and Taehyun emerged from the ceiling. Ryohei's attack was so powerful that it created a hole which dropped them to the lower level. Then Ryohei slashed through the whole room. It caused an explosion, and then he had Taehyun pinned down on the ground with his foot. He positioned his sword right at Taehyun's throat, but he was surprised. When Taehyun wrapped chains on his sword, he was confused about what it was. Taehyun told him that he's a fool. Ryohei cursed while his expression revealed that he's slightly nervous. He realized that Taehyun's skill earlier wasn't meant to find him, but it was for Taehyun to stop him running out of the skill's target range. Taehyun stood up and raised his arm. He asked Ryohei where he plans to run off to. The chains wrapped around Ryohei. That made Ryohei angry. He cursed at Taehyun. With chains wrapped around Taehyun's fist, he delivered a powerful punch at Ryohei's face. It was a powerful attack that created holes on the ground. After a while, Taehyun was able to chain Izaki Ryohei and his subordinates together. Some subordinates looked haggard and tired, while there's also some who are confused and angry. Ryohei was breathing heavily. He cursed at Taehyun. Taehyun replied that he doesn't understand why an S-ranker would do all those shitty things for some money. Ryohei yelled for him to shut up. He blamed Taehyun for ruining his plans. To shut him up, Taehyun stomped on his head, and then he kicked him hard. He told him that he's pretty chatty for a low-life criminal. The subordinates were worried for Ryohei. Taehyun demanded info about Narendra Nehru. He informed them that every country's association must have received urgent calls for reinforcements by then, as if a threat. He reminded Ryohei that Nehru would be done for once the reinforcements arrived.
Before all this began, I would have had my doubts about Taehyun's strength and whether he would come out on top. But with his ability to assimilate chosen abilities and the 10+ increase in all stats, this current Taehyun is a beast. If you've made it this far, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button, as the chief finishes telling us what else happened.
Ryohei laughed at the thought of reinforcements. Ryohei told Taehyun that he's just a clueless kid. Someone was running fast. The person entered the door. And that caught Ji Jinwai and Go Taewook's attention. The old man who just entered was in panic. He told them something about the reinforcements. He asked what happened to the reinforcements for East Point. This person is the 4 Great Guilds Alchemist's Guildmaster. And S-ranker, C.O. Sanjik, he was in panic as he shared that. Not just their articles are out there for sale, but also countless VIPs had participated. He's worried that the villains will do something bad to those people. Ji Jinwai asked him to calm down. He explained that they had formed a backup force as soon as they heard the terror news. It was a group of elite players with Player Park Sumjin leading them. Sanjik asked why those people haven't left yet. He volunteered his guild's personnel and supplies if that's what is needed. But Ji Jinwai told him that it wasn't the issue that they're facing. Ji Jinwai told him that they had no way to get there. Sanjik was confused. Taewook explained that the terrorists took over the control room for the East Point warp gate and blocked all the warp gates. Sanjik was utterly shocked. Taewook pacified him by telling him that it would be okay. He explained that there are 2 S-rank players at the scene. One of them was Taehyun, who just became an S-rank recently. But there's only 1 S-rank on the terrorist side. That made Taewook think that those 2 can hold out while they reconnect the warp gates. He even thought of the possibility that the 2 S-rank players could take down Narendra Nehru. Another person joined in the conversation and told them that the case would only happen if the opponent was a regular S-rank player. They were surprised to see who it was. It was Yuayon. Back to our MC. Taehyun stood in front of Ryohei. Ryohei asked him if he knew about the skill called Contract with the Devil. Taehyun had no idea, and Ryohei explained that it was the worst of Nehru's skills. He added that by offering sacrifices, depending on the amount and quality, Ryohei Nehru can summon a monster of a certain rank. Taehyun figured out the sacrifices. Ryohei told him that he's right since there's no other available sacrifices. They are pertaining to humans. Yueyong knew about it as well, and when she told the men in the room, they were extremely shocked. Ji Jinwai couldn't even form a sentence. Taewook stated that Narendra Nehru held roughly a few hundred hostages. Sanjik added that on top of that, Nehru is a notorious terrorist who is particularly skilled even among S-rankers, and if someone like him sacrifices 100 people and summons a monster, Yueyong told them that it was exactly what she wanted to point out, that it will cause a catastrophe. Taehyun made Ryohei his punching bag. He called them lunatics. Ryohei laughed at him and told him that Kim Taehyun could have been lucky and defeated him, but he'll never be able to win against Nehru. So Ryohei pushed him to make a choice between begging for his life and watching those innocent hostages be offered as sacrifices, or charge into a fight that he had no chance of winning and die like a dog. Ryohei kept laughing while Taehyun was enraged. The sun was about to set. The building is situated on an isolated island, and the warp gate had been blocked. A subordinate reported to Nehru that Ryohei had lost. The subordinate explained that the whereabouts of Taehyun, who took down Ryohei, were unknown, along with the Phoenix Potion. He asked what they should do. Nehru laughed and said that there's no chance of winning a face-to-face fight. So Taehyun had been waiting for the association's reinforcements. However, that will not be enough. This villain then raised his hand and dark smoke enveloped it. Nehru used his ability on some of the people in there. He was about to choke them to death. His strategy was, if Taehyun doesn't show up, he'll drag him out. The woman who had been choked was in a sorry state. Nehru announced the beginning of the festival for their god. But then, he noticed something. There was a blackout. The terrorists were confused since all the bombs were blasted ages ago, but it did not cause a blackout. But now just all of a sudden, it happened. Nehru was angry. The sacrifice that he was holding earlier had disappeared in a second. Taehyun, in stealth, was behind him. Taehyun's fist was almost on his face. The chains were so close to him, but he was quick to evade it. He had a difficult time, and Taehyun thought that he had got him. But the chains were diffused. A snake had appeared. Kim Taehyun was taken aback. Nehru had several snakes around him and several fireballs too. There was a big explosion. Fortunately, Taehyun had escaped that.
Get ready, because our boy is about to start cooking up something epic. Before we dive into this insane battle of the S-rank players, smash that like button to boost the channel. Your support means everything. Chief is about to spill the beans on how Taehyun pulled off the ultimate survival move in this crazy ordeal. You don't want to miss this. It's going to be off the charts.
He didn't expect that Nehru would have monsters hidden on top of his head. He was like Medusa. Taehyun wondered what's the deal with that guy. The civilians asked Taehyun if he's there to rescue them. Taehyun nonchalantly threw them using his chains and told them that they were all in his way. His attention shifted to the monster noises. Since there were so many of them who were on their way to him, the monsters struck him. But Taehyun easily sliced them with his dagger. He emerged from being surrounded by the monsters. Taehyun was surprised that several monsters were on their way towards him, and the impact of the attack of the monsters created an explosion. Nehru commented that Taehyun was a fool. He told him that he shouldn't have treated the monsters from the skill contract with the devil, the same as the monsters that he had seen until now, and using his magic, the monsters became sturdier than other monsters. Kim Taehyun got hit and he coughed up blood. Nehru uttered that just because Taehyun defeated Ryohei, he shouldn't have thought of defying God's will. The civilians were worried because they thought that Taehyun was completely being overpowered. One person even complained that when they asked Taehyun to save them, Taehyun did as he pleased. But now it looked like he can't win against those monsters. A person corrected this man that is not what's happening in there. The old man who spoke told them to look carefully. Then he explained that thanks to Taehyun, the monsters aren't paying any attention to them. He added that despite being overpowered with the monsters, Taehyun was far from running away and he's not allowing a single monster to come their way. Almost all of the people looked mind-blown. The old man added that Taehyun had evacuated the hostages over to that side by throwing them up in the air just now. They cheered for Taehyun and expressed their trust in him. Taehyun used his chains to fight. It choked several monsters, and with that, he brought them down. Then he yelled for everyone to shut up. The people were confused. Even Nehru. Taehyun complained that the hostages kept getting in his way and the damn monsters kept coming at him. He yelled that he couldn't do that stupid shit anymore. It was funny how that made the civilians sweat heavily. Nehru laughed and asked if Taehyun is deciding to give up. Then Taehyun yelled, "So please end this quickly. Play your part, Ji-won." Nehru was taken aback. A man entered the room. Nehru was confused about who that person was, and when he had entered, Ji-won had a blue ball of light on his palms. He apologized to Taehyun for making him wait for a long time, and there he goes. Earlier, Ryohei was unconscious, and Ji-won had encountered that body. Ji-won asked Kim Taehyun what it was about. Taehyun explained that those are the security team guys who were in cahoots with the terrorists. Ji-won couldn't believe that it happened while he was gone. Taehyun told him that they had more pressing issues at hand. Taehyun explained that the warp gate control room is swarming with monsters by Nehru. Fighting the villains isn't a huge problem, but it's the fact that the monsters won't sit still when they see the civilians. And above all, the people could get swept into all of it. And so, he told Ji-won that he needed his skill, the gate manipulation. Ji-won was surprised. He explained that he wanted to help, but unless he knew the exact warp point, connecting the gate with the association side was going to be impossible. Taehyun told him that it doesn't matter, since he's only after one thing. Ji-won looked at him with disbelief. Taehyun planned to send out the monsters. The warp gate glowed. It was getting activated. The monsters were being sucked in, and they slowly disappeared in the room. Nehru couldn't believe it. He was so confused about what just happened. When Ji-won first heard the plan, he thought it was absurd. No one would have actually thought that it would work. Now, only Nehru and the terrorists are left. That made Park Ji-won think that they are about to win. Taehyun called his name loudly. He then instructed Jeonwon that his role is over, so he should take the hostages with him and leave at once. Naeru jumped to the level where Taehyun is. Taehyun explained that in that fight, he can't protect anyone. Naeru was enraged. He called out Taehyun's name angrily. Taehyun had the nerve to mock him. Jeonwon was torn. He led everyone to the door. Taehyun watched them leave. Now all that's left is his fight. Naeru threw a large fireball at him. Taehyun looked serious as he dashed away. He attacked Naeru with his chains, and it sent several debris flying in the air. Naeru called him a fool and doubted that he's an S-ranker like him. Naeru covered his arm in flames. The flame turned into a form of a dragon, and then he asked if a kid like Taehyun could actually stop him. Taehyun braced himself for the attack. The attack was so powerful that it caused a large explosion in the room. Naeru turned white and several monsters appeared. He told Taehyun that it doesn't matter how many monsters he had killed. He called Taehyun a filthy non-believer. And so, Taehyun would receive a punishment for his sin of soiling the name of God. And that punishment is death. Several monsters charged towards him. He told Naeru that he will be the one who will die there. Taehyun activated a skill, and it created the same dragon-like monster that Naeru made earlier. Now, its prey is Naeru. It had a wide mouth. Naeru was in great disbelief. He wondered if Taehyun had hidden his real power all this time. Naeru laughed, and it became louder. He expressed that he acknowledged that Taehyun is the highest quality sacrifice, but Taehyun isn't the only one who's hiding his powers. People came out of the warp. The terrorists were choking and coughing up blood, and they were slowly reduced to ashes. Taehyun was in utter shock. Naeru declared that all sacrifices had been offered. A strange creature crept out of Naeru's back. A green dragon-like monster appeared. It was a rank S bone dragon. A few moments earlier, it can be seen from the outside that the civilians led by Jeonwon were faced against some of the terrorists. Jeonwon complained how there's still so many terrorists. The terrorists wondered if those people escaped from the floor above. The terrorists had the idea that since those civilians had run away, it would be okay to have them killed, but the terrorists started coughing blood. They screamed in pain while Jeonwon and the rest watched them. Jeonwon gazed out the window because of explosions coming from the other side of the building. He wondered what was happening. The large monster attacked Taehyun. Taehyun was blasted away. Naeru rode the backside of the monster. He uttered, "The dragon is the strongest of all." Taehyun's chains appeared, and he stuck that on the wall while he held the other end to stop himself from falling. And when he finally lifted himself up, it broke and he found himself on the safe ground. He was breathing heavily. Taehyun was confused on where the monster came from. When he lifted his gaze, he was horrified. The dragon was in front of him, and its mouth had a ready laser beam to blast at him. Taehyun was stunned. He took the dragon's attack with his body, and it blasted him to the other side of the building. Not one to take a beating lying down, Taehyun attacks with Predation, only for the dragon to shrug it off and counter with a massive fire breath blast. Hanging like a puppet with cut strings, Taehyun's chains manage to keep him from falling to his death as he tries to catch his breath. He now understands why S-rank players are looked at as demigods, but he doesn't know how much longer he can continue this fight. He assumes it was the same for the terrorist, with both of them reaching their limits. However, things didn't go as expected, as Naeru, calling Taehyun a troublesome sinner, sets his sights on the hostages that escaped him earlier. All looks hopeless as Naeru comes within striking range and attacks. To him, they all are the same before his god. Back at the Players Association headquarters, the atmosphere was charged with anticipation as reinforcements were being mobilized. The final preparations were meticulously underway, with each team running through last-minute strategies. Unfortunately, despite their best efforts, only one gate could be successfully connected to the auction site. The uncertainty of what lay beyond the gate weighed heavily on everyone's minds. The team leader stepped forward. His voice cut through the tension, delivering a powerful speech aimed at boosting the morale of his team. With a final rallying cry, the team leader led them toward the gate, ready to face whatever challenges awaited on the other side. Coming to, Park Gaeon-woong was shocked to realize he was still alive. He had been certain that the attack by the Bone Dragon had extinguished the spark they called life. However, His daze was abruptly broken by Taehyun's urgent command to get his butt in gear and leave the area. Park insisting that Taehyun should forget about them and focus on handling the bone dragon. He believed their fate was sealed, but Taehyun's wasn't if he just abandoned them. Taehyun, however, cut him off sharply, telling him to stop the bullshit as it was making him lose focus. Nothing Taehyun was doing seemed to be working, and he was slowly losing this tug of war with the monstrous creature. The summoner's sinister laughter echoed through the battlefield, and the bone dragon breath was beginning to overpower Taehyun. The taunting from the front and the desperate pleas from behind were starting to drive Taehyun mad. He racked his brain, frantically trying to devise a strategy to turn the tides of this seemingly hopeless battle. The pressure was immense, but Taehyun knew he couldn't afford to give up. The lives of everyone depended on his next move. Nehru told him to die while he went after Taehyun. Taehyun was already pissed off to that meatless fucking dragon skeleton. He thought that Predation was going berserk. He wondered if it's the end for him. He thought how he's dying pointlessly, especially after all the time it took for him to get where he is. His body is cracking. He had a strong will not to die, and he maintained this will even until his arm already fell off. Taehyun couldn't hold himself up any longer. He landed on the pool of his blood. Nehru was greatly affected by his attack. He wondered if Taehyun forced his skill to go berserk.
Time out, time out, time out. How Taehyun got the hostages out of the way was pure genius. His monster slaying was on point, but even with Predation active, our boy still got bodied. This battle is intense.
Even I thought Taehyun got in way over his head this time. Being from the future, he has knowledge of events, but not the details behind them. This lets him prepare for what's ahead to some degree, but it also means he's navigating some serious unknowns.
So who comes in to save the day? You guessed it, the team they assembled at headquarters finally makes it just in time to back Taehyun up before it's too late. With their combined skills and strategy, they're ready to turn the tide and take this battle to the next level.
You would think that, wouldn't you?
The final boss says,
Respect my authority!
A ridiculous amount of energy overwhelms Nehru, and what's even harder to understand for him is that Taehyun couldn't handle the load of his skills and fainted already, but the skill hasn't stopped. That made Nehru angry. He uttered how daring it was for a non-believer. He targeted Taehyun's unconscious body. The dragon claws appeared, but all of a sudden that arm was chopped off. Nehru couldn't process what had just happened. Next thing he knew, Taehyun was back on his feet, and when he turned around, he saw something that would be enough to make him tremble. A gigantic, ominous red creature had appeared. It had multiple heads, and it was even larger than the freaking building. It roared loudly. Nehru uttered, "What on earth?" Kim Taehyun mocked him for saying something about God. He told Nehru what a joke. Nehru knew he was doomed. He was horrified. He asked, "Who are you?" He knew that was no longer Taehyun, especially with that immense power. The person inside Taehyun replied that is no damn concern to an insect, because after all, Narendra Nehru is already dead. Nehru couldn't follow the conversation. Red blades touched his body, and it released a powerful attack that painted the area crimson red. The system notified him of a new skill called demonic contract. Taehyun found himself in a dark place. He was confused since he was just with Nehru. All of a sudden, the chains appeared, and it tied up Taehyun. He wondered what was happening. After being tied up, large boulders came crashing on him. He recognized that it was his skills, stone skin, and paralysis. He asked himself, what the hell is going on? A pair of hands appeared, and the king's authority showed up, which led him to feel immense pain. He felt like he's being burned alive. He wondered why his skills were attacking him. Then he heard a voice that mocked him for calling it his skills. The voice asked, since when were those his powers? When he just ate all of that, and now the voice forced him to spit out all he took in. Several monsters charged towards him, but he couldn't do anything except to watch it. All of a sudden, there was an intense, bright light. A pillow and a blanket were thrown in the air. Taehyun fell off the bed. He was panting. While sweating heavily, he realized that it was just a dream. He looked at his hand and saw that he's not hurt, and his right arm that Predation broke down is now fine. Sungjin came in and saw that he's already up. He's surprised to see Sungjin there. Sungjin offered him some food. The table was filled with snacks. While having a snack, Sungjin explained that the association and the alchemists prepared the place for him as a way to show courtesy to repay him from what he did during the terror attack. Sungjin added that it was thanks to Kim Taehyun that even Ryohei got arrested after falling for the terrorists' temptations. Compared to the scale of the terror attack, many actually survive. Sungjin informed Taehyun that countless people already visited him out of worry, from his parents to chairman, and they were bawling their eyes out. Sungjin explained to him that the tests didn't show any health issues in the first place, and Sungjin stayed behind just in case villains or reporters got involved. Taehyun was quiet, and then he expressed that he was certain that he passed out while fighting Narendra Nehru. He wondered what on earth happened. Sungjin replied, "As I thought, you're the same." Taehyun asked him what he meant. Sungjin expressed that he wanted to ask him about that too. Back then, Jeon-won had seen him. Taehyun has red hair and he stood there. After ending Nehru in one strike, and Jeon-won instinctively knew that it was Taehyun, but at the same time, he's not. Jeon-won inquired what that person had done to Taehyun, but that caused Jeon-won immense fear. When Taehyun looked at him, Taehyun looked really scary, and it seemed like he's going to attack him. Jeon-won trembled in fear. Then he coughed up blood and immediately lost consciousness. Taehyun noticed his red arm was disappearing. He knew that he reached his limit. He smiled as he decided to return for now, but he made sure that it would only be for the meantime. Then Kim Taehyun's body fell to the ground. It looked like he was sleeping peacefully. All of a sudden, someone came running. It was Sungjin, and in panic, he woke up Taehyun. The rest of the team checked and confirmed the survivors in the area. It was reported that everyone was just unconscious, and it doesn't look like their lives are in any danger. Another person was concerned that the whereabouts of the terrorists and Nehru were unknown. Sungjin cursed. He kept calling Kim Taehyun's name. He couldn't understand what just happened there. When Taehyun heard that, the shock was evident on his face. Sungjin narrated that after that, he asked the survivors about what happened. All of them remembered Taehyun stopping Nehru, but they couldn't recall the overall situation at all. Sungjin expressed that it's as if something had messed with the memories of the survivors. He assumed that it must be the terrorists doing it. He started to leave and wished Taehyun to take good care of himself. He informed Taehyun that if he finds something else, he will get in touch with him. Deep inside, Taehyun knew that it can't be Nehru's doing. He's also confused since he had no idea how he got healed, but he was certain that his arm got destroyed because of predation, and he knew that Nehru fell prey to predation since it informed him that demonic contract rank B had been registered. With that, Taehyun had the ability to open the gate to the abyss. That caught his attention. He realized that it was a skill to summon monsters. It required 200 magic, but his current magic at the moment is only 180. Sungjin went back and called him to say that there's another visitor. Taehyun was surprised. Liam A-young appeared. Taehyun's surprised face was funny. With that, Sungjin truly left this time. Liam A-young told him that she's there to visit him, and she gave him a basket of fruits.
If you're finding this story engaging, feel free to drop a comment below. I'd love to discuss the unfolding narrative and hear your thoughts. And if you're enjoying the tales shared, don't forget to hit that like button. For more captivating stories like this, simply click on any of the links by my side, and together, let's dive into more immersive worlds. Your feedback and interaction make this journey all the more exciting.